for your information, especially those who are very much interested in safe hospitals, we have a dedicated session tomorrow, plenary parallel session number 2. And we have experts with us who will be presenting good practices and a real in-depth discussion on how to make hospitals safe from disaster. So if you have questions related to that, you may wish to reserve them tomorrow, and we will be able to adequately answer your questions. Now, um, other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm Mona from Indonesia. I am representing the table consists of from Papua New Guinea, Nigeria, India, who based in Geneva, and from India, and I myself from Indonesia. We were discussing in our table that it seems like presentation are so important and so interesting, and it seems like we can go back and do that, you know. But the problem is we're discussing how to really disseminate the informations until to the grassroots level. We have in our table a person who really works from the grassroots level, and she can penetrate until to the national, to bring this to national issues. It's from Papua New Guinea. But this is an issue that also I think a problem from us, especially I would say from our countries, from the developing countries. So we know there are lots of publications, informations everywhere. And now we are using electronic media for that. But I would say like from Indonesia, we cannot reach, we cannot have the internet access until to the very remote areas. And they're the ones who are very prone to disasters. And then, as you mentioned before, Senator Loren Legarda, that you already have from Manila Declaration all these electronic things and informations, all those kinds of things. But then the problem is how it is a question. It's not really just a question of how to disseminate it, but the problem is how we impose to our government to really disseminate informations all already discussed and you presented to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your very good question, because it is a hurdle that all of us must take. So, I understand you have two questions. Number one, how do we convince our respective governments to take DRR and CCA seriously, to make it a national priority? And second, how do we make sure that we disseminate it and it is understood in the grassroots level? And answer the first question first. That is the reason why we had parliamentarians over the weekend. So when we return home to our respective countries, our respective parliaments, we will introduce legislation, if we have not done so yet, to make sure that DRR and CCA are mainstreamed in the national development agenda. Second, for those countries not represented in the first consultative meeting in Manila, we will set up an Asian hub. I will set up, with the help of the ISDR, to set up an Asian hub with your Indonesian parliamentarian, with a Nigerian, and our African counterparts from Ghana and Uganda and the East African National Assembly will set up the African hub. And we will all integrate everything that we have done and disseminate it to them. This is only the first meeting, sponsored by the ISDR. We will have annual meetings where the 10 lawmakers will be the core group that created the Manila Declaration. It will have a domino effect and a multiplier effect where we will convince our colleagues in Parliament and colleagues in neighboring Asian nations. Second, how do we make sure that the vulnerable communities and those who perhaps do not read or write, those who do not have access to television and radio, those who cannot attend high policy level meetings like this, understand what is disaster risk reduction, what is climate change adaptation and mitigation. We, together with the ISDR, will embark on a massive IEC program, Information, Education, Communications program, which we will do to document everything that we've done in these two conferences. The Manila Declaration of the ISDR with the parliamentarians, which is high level, difficult to understand. This CAPWIP 4-day conference, whatever comes out of it, we'll put the materials together and simplify what scientists, what policymakers, what politicians, what NGO leaders have been talking about to make sure that those who have less in life, and it is not their fault that they're not educated, that they can't attend conferences, will understand. How do we do it? Many ways. First, we'll produce materials in simple form with pictures, with drawings for children to understand. We will do it in English, but it may be reproduced in your respective countries, in your languages. Second, we will come up with an Asian version, perhaps an African version of the inconvenient truth. Best practices, disasters, and what has been done. Best practices for inspirational stories. And we will do it together with the ISDR. I will do it for Asia. We can lend it to you. We will give it to CAPWIP, the CAPWIP network all over the world. We'll do it to the Globe network in Europe because they can learn from what we are doing in Asia. And this can be done and replicated in many parts of the world. So we have a serious documentary that will document DRR and CCA. We will have best practices in our various countries. And we will have information materials for children and for women. In the Philippines, I'm embarking on this on my own as well. We are doing environmental animation and cartoons, which I will distribute in all public elementary schools. Recently, I produced a 45-minute environmental docudrama the women in the in the rural areas who don't have access to meetings like this will understand, and I will distribute it to every NGO, every LGU, every school around the country. This can be done in your own countries when you return. So there are many ways, but what Dr. Feng Min Kan and Manny here and Dr. Salvano agreed upon in principle is that we will come out with information materials to be distributed to the CAPWIP, Globe, and ISDR network. Whoever are present here, give your organization's contact to Dr. Feng Min Kan and my staff, Attorney Army. And when we come out with these materials, we awareness and the interest. But the fact that we are how many hundreds of us present here today and we return to our respective countries and influence our communities, our governments, it will at least improve the situation. This question is relevant because that is what's happening in the Philippines. The Ecological Solid Waste Management Law is an example of a beautifully crafted law. However, we still have to see the effective implementation in the barangay or the grassroots level because waste is still not being segregated at source, composted, and recycled. And that was a 2001 measure. I realize it is not only the Philippines, it is in your respective countries. That is a challenge to all of us. It is not perfect, but we're getting there. The fact that we are talking about it now and we are monitoring all these laws, I think that things will be better. We in the Senate are doing our tasks by creating the Oversight Committee. And during the budgetary season, when Congress approves the budget of each and every government department, then we ask for their performance in the implementation of laws we crafted. If not, we cut their budget. If there's a need for more budget, then we increase it. So that's the power of the purse of Congress. That's how we can make sure that that our laws are implemented. There's another question, and sorry, I'll have to go after this. What is the mechanism of